Okay, we're starting class. Take roll. Some others may come in later. Kayla, Bailey, Cody, on me, Peter Cox, Georgia, Barry Francis here. Is good around?
I think he's back. He's taking the class.
He's on my roster.
I haven't seen him.
What was he staying? Was he staying out at the hotel?
He moved.
He moved. It's on the one. He's here. On Brianna. Bettina, Hightower, on here. Adam. Mason, on here. Samuel, on here. Mark. Anna. Maya, on here. She'll come later. Haley made it today. Zachary, I think he has to live stream. Tanner, on here, yeah. Stevens. Later. Okay. Antonio. I don't know. He said everybody want to be here. Younger. I think Younger totally live stream. What's your last name?
Madeline.
What?
Madeline.
Yeah, Sam. Okay, whether here or not, we need to start class. Haley, I'll give you a syllabus. And all of you all know how to get in the Moodle. If you miss a class, you know to just click on the date of the class and you'll be able to watch the video. It's much simpler than going to Bluefield State Video Center and searching for it, what have you. But anyway, the assignments on Moodle, you can start those. I don't care what dates on them, they're still good. They're with this book, so forth. But had the 3 international students last night, and all the international students I've had have been good students, they're great students, and they have barriers that you all don't have. Georgia, I think you finally got your driver's license.
I did it.
Okay. But 3 students I had last night didn't have driver's license. They haven't been here long enough, I guess. They had to get public transportation out here. Somebody take them back. Okay, so they have barriers to driver's license, transportation, and strange country and so forth, away from family. And most of them are playing some kind of sport. You're still playing tennis. Last year's team, I think, was both male and female, was all international, weren't you?
Female, we had 2 Americans.
2, okay. But I think the tennis team, male was ranked, what, 13?
13.
Females ranked. So, they help make up, and they have to play a sport. And the language, one young man last night, he's got a real heavy accent. I'll get used to it. Giorgio, I'm used to him, but there's even words. Giorgio's an A student, and of course he takes. Taking 24 credits this semester. And playing tennis, and student work, and still have a girlfriend? If you do, that takes time. All right. So, but they have a lot of barriers, and they're still good students. And some people don't have those barriers, so you can be a good student too. Okay. So let's have all A students this semester. Okay, chapter 1, I'm not too concerned with. Now, how many of you have a textbook? All right, textbook here, textbook there. Gary, you have a textbook, you have one, Katie, you have one, you have, Tina, you have a textbook. I told you I'll let you use this with this period. But anyway, look around, you can find it cheap, on either rented hers for $35 or $70, she's not sure. Okay, but, let's see, most of them, let's see if it's. We didn't look at it. Tina, could you come down and try to see what Kayla here, share her book?
Are you retired?
Don't know.
Somebody take that.
Oh, they did,
After this special.
maybe this year, I don't know. Maybe this year. So, but anyhow, I have to wait and see. Okay, Giorgio, would you share a seat up here and the book, so both of you can see a textbook? There's about 20 or 21 in this class, so some are live streaming. If you're out there live streaming, please text me if you want to be county president today. Text me at 276-964-3431. Okay, chapter 1 was just an overview, and that's the only PowerPoint I had. I thought it downloaded every chapter, but it did not. So we will not fool with PowerPoints today. Chapter 1 had a few exercises in it. Chapter 1, if you would, turn to page 28 and 9. I need to definitely look at some of these costs and some of these terms that are on these pages. The first one you see is non-manufacturing cost. Now, first off, you got to learn what manufacturing costs are, and manufacturing cost, materials, labor, and manufacturing overhead. Now, these three costs are manufacturing costs. They're also called product cost. Now, period cost is selling expense and administrative expense. So we will learn to separate the two as we go along. And that's what they're telling you, non-manufacturing cost on page 29 is product cost. Okay, and they mentioned period cost. Period cost is selling administrative, which is also non-manufacturing cost. Now they mentioned variable cost and fixed cost, just for the terminology, we'll talk about it. Let's see, who's married in here again? Who's married? Okay. Okay, you have kids, right? Now, what are some of your fixed costs per month? Living expenses. What are some fixed costs?
Power bill.
Is that fixed? If you're on a budget, it would be.
Yeah.
Telephone bills fixed now, unless you go over on data or text or whatever. You may have a few fixed bills. You have a house or rent payment?
I own my house.
Okay, so you don't, most people have a fixed expense there, rent or payment. Insurance, automobile, that's almost fixed, but it does go up, don't it?
Yes.
But now some of your variable cost is probably food, clothing, emergencies, transportation. You may use more gas one month than you do another month. So there are variable costs and there are fixed costs. In a factory, some of your fixed costs would be depreciation. And those that are on salary would be fixed costs. But your material, depending on how much you produced, is variable. And your labor may be variable, depending on how many hours is worked a week or a month. And overhead is probably variable, but even some of it's fixed. Depreciation is overhead and it's fixed. So that's a few of the terms that we're looking at on page 30 and 31. And 32 is your fixed cost. All right, mixed cost is also called semi-variable cost, like your power bill. If you cut everything off, some of it's you're going to have a fixed part of it, and the rest of it's variable. Okay, and we'll worry about differential cost later. And pretty much that's chapter 1, and there probably won't be anything on a test from chapter 1. So we're going to actually start on chapter 2. Any questions or problems that was on this chapter in chapter 1, please go ahead and do them. And don't know if we'll get back and work over them again or not. There's other costs in the appendix. We'll look at those later. But today, want to get into pretty much the meat of accounting and hopefully some of the journal entries and so forth with chapter 2. All right, now the flow of a manufacturing cost, and we'll be looking at journal entries later. You buy materials, you pay for labor, and you incur overhead. Now those three items go into work in process. Now that would be job order or process. Now those three go to finished goods. Now from finished goods, they are sold or cost of goods sold or what have you, but they are sales, go to sales, that'd be probably better. Now that will be the flow of all costs in manufacturing accounting and in cost accounting. Now manufacturing accounting, managerial, some of you have to take this semester, then you have to take cost accounting. Cost accounting is the same as managerial, it just goes in a little deeper. But if you learn managerial accounting, it makes cost accounting real easy, okay? So one works with the other one. But managerial accounting puts in some of the management terms as we looked at the other day. All right, now first of all, we'll start with job order in chapter 2. And what do you buy now that's job order? Job order. What do you buy now that is just job order? House. All right, if you were having a house built, that's job order. Okay, I guess if you bought an airplane or a yacht, that'd be job order. If you had a tailor-made suit, or if a lady had a wedding dress made, or even if you have a wedding cake made at the bakery, that's job order. Your specification. They don't make the same wedding cake for everybody. Now, chapter 3 will be process accounting. And most everything we buy is process. Your clothes, process, your books, your snacks, your drinks, the automobiles, all made in a process. The only job order that's in the automobile industry, if a police car might be special ordered, special equipment, or taxi cab, or something like that, or even a handicap, you have special order, or maybe a driver's ed car, you got to have 2 brakes, or what have you. That'd be a little special order. But most things are processed. But this is job order. Now, if a furniture company in Bluefield ordered 10 dining room sets with their own specification from a furniture company, that would be a job order. All right, all repairs are job order. But now construction, any direction you go now, I guess you've got construction happening. You have, I know Tazewell County, I've got construction going home that way. But how about in Mercer County? Do you have your construction getting here? I don't know which way Miss Belcher came, but she said the construction helped them up or what have you. So, but a road, a highway. Now, if we were building a house, you've got to have materials. If you build a highway, you got to have materials. This new dorm we're going to get in 100 years, we'll have to have materials. It will be job order, okay? All right. But if you're building a house, your materials, your contractor can get them priced at Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever. Now, if your materials cost $80,000 to build that house, all right, a contractor knows what labor he will have, whether it's bricklayers or concrete pourers or drywalls or roofers, what have you. He knows his labor. And let's say his labor was $60,000 to build your house. All right, now he's going to have overhead. Overhead is everything else, depreciation on his tools, his gasoline, his payroll taxes, his overhead. All right, if he figures his overhead is $20,000, now to build your house, he's going to have $160,000 real money out of pocket. Okay, so he has to know this to give you a bid. You already own your land. You may have county water and sewer hookup, but he's going to put in, he wants a profit. He's not going to build your house to break even. So he may throw in $20,000 for a profit or even 40 and quote you at $200,000. So if you don't like his bid, then you go get someone else to give you a different bid. Or you go with cheaper materials, 2x4s to 2x6s, and so on. All right. Now, every job you do, and being a handyman, do you do a lot of carpenter work? I know you probably repair things that's already there. But when you do carpenter work, do they supply the materials or do you? You do? So you've got to know the price of your materials. Maybe it's $1,500 for one job. All right. Now, since you probably didn't know what overhead was, but you do have gasoline to get to that site, and you have small tools or big tools that you'd appreciate and so forth. So you have overhead in there, let's say a couple $100. Now, your profit is your labor, isn't it? And if you estimate the hours, you might want to make so much an hour or you make so much a job. Okay. So your profit and your labor costs, but you got to know these other two, or you couldn't give these people a decent bid. Have you ever done a job that you lost money on? Why?
Because I miscalculated how long it would take, what it would take to do it.
All right. Did you miscalculate materials?
Yeah.
All right. And sometimes material prices go up and so forth. So if he miscalculates his materials and throw in some overhead, he's going to take a loss on his labor. Instead of averaging $20 an hour, he might have ended up averaging $10 an hour. But when you say you took a loss, all right, after materials and overhead, did you make any kind of profit at all?
No.
So your labor was totally free?
Basically, yeah. That was just with one job that I did. Yeah. Basically.
Well, all I
It
can
was
say,
early on when I started doing this.
yeah, I thought it had to be early on or it's a pretty woman. But that you just gave her a good deal to get the job. But okay, so that's cost accounting concepts, and he's living it. Okay. Now we had another young man in here. He's not here today. I think he had what? No, it might have been in principal. He had a e-commerce business selling clothing online. So, but that's a merchandise business. That's not manufacturing. Manufacturing is making something, okay, or repairing something, remodeling this building or whatever. So we have a lot of manufacturing in the construction business. It usually is job order. Now, what manufacturing companies does Mercer County have? Are any companies here that make something? Besides roads and houses and apartments and buildings. Well, is there a sign shop? And they do make signs, customize them, that'd be job order. Your sign has to have your business name on it, your telephone number, or your open hours, whatever. So those are customized and they're job order signs. Is there a bottling company, Pepsi or Coke in the area? That's manufacturing. How about Blue Wolf down here below, in Bluefield, Virginia, I guess? They make Blue Wolf, which is a liquid cleaner, isn't it? So that's manufacturing or bottling something. Okay, how about Joy Manufacturing or Carter? Do they manufacture anything or they just service Caterpillar and things like that? Joy, I know they used to make mining machinery. I don't know if they're still around or not. Still around? Who bought them out? Okay. So manufacturing business, Mercer County needs more. They've got plenty of retail business out the mall and stuck everywhere. They got plenty of service business, whether it be barbershops, accountants, tax preparers, plumber repairman, what have you. But they need more manufacturing. Like most counties in this part of the country needs more manufacturing. All right, so job order. Hope you have an idea of what it is. If you're ordering business cards, that's job order, but you can do your own now on your computer, what have you. Okay, let's look at page 70 and 71 real quick. There's a materials requisition form, and we've got a job cost sheet. Now look at that job cost sheet, figure 22, exhibit 22. We've got job number, we got the date, the department is billing, and we want a special order coupling. Now, are there any manufacturing companies in the area that make small parts or mining parts or anything of that nature? The second category here is materials. And the third category, when you get down to the cost summary, you've got materials, you've got labor, you've got overhead, and you've got the total product cost. You can divide by the units to get the unit cost. So if you don't got no manufacturing accounting, as you didn't at the beginning, you tend to take a loss or a low bid. Now, there's a lot of people manufacturing. Let's see, I had a guy last year, his name's David. He makes furniture. I think out of logs. And I think he's making them for some cabins down in the Smoky Mountains. And I think he's had a lot of customers that does a lot of work. He makes beds and other furniture out of logs. Okay, that's manufacturing. If you go up to Tamarack, have all of you been in Tamarack? Have you looked around at the things that are made in West Virginia? whether it be a wooden rocking chair or whether it be a quilt, that's manufactured. So these people that do arts and crafts, they're manufacturing something. And they may know the price of materials, they don't know what overhead is, and some of them, even though those little items look expensive that they make, you know, they've got to get paid back for the materials. They don't know their overhead is setting up tents and paying fees and gasoline and all that, appreciation on wherever they make these items. And what they make is their labor cost, okay? Some of them may do well, some of them not. We go to arts and crafts show and you see all kinds of ideas. They make something out of anything, don't they? Whether it be a pine cone or a seashell or a rock. Okay, so the three costs is illustrated on these 2 pages. I think I missed something in chapter 1 that I'll have to go back to when I get to it, because they're just not covering some of these costs the way I want them to. Okay, now overhead, computer predetermined overhead rate on page 73 would be a predetermined overhead rate. Now what you do, you guess at what, or you go by historical cost and you take your budgeted overhead and you divide that by some base. All right, usually that base is direct labor hours or machine hours or direct labor costs. That would be one of your 3 bases that is normally used to do a predetermined overhead rate. So on page 73, you see the in the red, the overhead rate that they have. All right, if we calculate an overhead rate, if we had budgeted overhead, let's say is going to be 200,000, and our direct labor hours is 10,000, then we'd have to apply $20 of overhead for every hour worked. So if this one job took 10 hours, you'd multiply it by $20 and charge $200 overhead. Okay. Now this can be direct labor hours. It could actually be machine hours. Now, if you divide by a dollar amount, if you divide a dollar amount into a dollar amount, if labor cost is going to be $400,000 and your estimated overhead is 200, then you're going to get a percent, which is 50% or a decimal. Now, if we do a job and there was $10,000 of labor, then we multiply that by our predetermined overhead rate of 50%, and our overhead to apply to that job would be $5,000. So you got to know something about overhead and what's involved in it. We'll be looking at that as we go.
So in the previous example we had, as an allocation base was direct labor hours of 10,000.
Yes.
And then predetermined rate was 20.
And this was direct labor cost.
Okay, 20. And then you took predetermined rate and multiplied by 10. How did you get 10? And you got 200 as an overhead.
All right. I think I erased that example, But
Yeah,
this,
you're right.
this was based on dollars, so if I raised it, let's look at it this way. If our predetermined overhead is 200,000 and there was 10,000 direct labor hours,
That would be 20.
that would be $20 per hour. And if we worked 100 hours on a job, then our overhead, I don't know, we may be paying $20 an hour for labor in this case, I don't know. But we'd multiply it by 20 and we would get, I guess that's $2,000 factory overhead. But we'll practice some of those. Bettina?
I just need to go up to the parking days. So it could be direct labor hours, direct labor costs and stuff.
Yeah, machine hours. I just put down an M, machine hour.
So this allocation base is the total amount of the allocation base for the whole month?
Yeah, for the year, the whole month, this,
Whatever the case may be.
it's a future prediction.
Okay.
So a factory overhead rate is a future prediction. Now, why we do that,
Because we can provide timely information.
all right, as we go along for the month, we record the cost of our materials and the cost of our labor and the cost of our overhead. But if we're going to give a bid, we don't know the overhead, we haven't incurred it yet. That's why we need a predetermined overhead rate. Okay, and we'll record this rate as we go along. Now, if we had a T account called manufacturing overhead, now when we pay taxes, payroll taxes, we may have $5,000 for taxes. We may have $2,000 for indirect labor, which I'll explain in a minute. And we may have $1,000 or whatever for rent. These are your actual expenses. All right. But when we apply overhead, that's going to be a credit. Now that's 8,000. We may have applied 8,200 overhead. And we're going to have a difference here, and I'll show you how to do that and to get rid of it. Okay. All right. But since you asked that question, Giorgio, and since Bettina asked a question, let's go to exercise 212 at the end of your chapter. Exercise 212. All right, let's look at this together. All right, this company, machine hours required to support estimated production is 100,000. Fixed factory overhead is 650,000. Variable factory overhead per machine hour is $3. Now compute the plant-wide predetermined overhead rate. Now during the year, job 400 was started and completed. The following information was available. Direct materials was $450. Direct labor was $210. All right, we want to find the cost of this job. And I have to fish my pen out again. And what we have is 450 and 210. That's materials and labor. But now we need overhead before we know what the cost is. Okay. Now, all you've got to do is divide 650,000 by 100. What do you get? How much? That's $6.50. Okay, now your fixed factory overhead is $3.
But wait, that's only 650,000, that's only fixed manufacturing order. What about variable?
Well, that is the variable.
No,
Now let's see. Oh, okay, yeah, fixed. Okay, this is fixed, right? We add the variable to it, $3. That's going to make $9.50. Okay. Now, how many machine hours did we use?
40.
40 times $9.50. So what is our overhead? Well, you can do these separate. What's our overhead? Is that 380? Everybody should have calculators. 40 times 950. Is that 380?
Yeah.
I do stuff shortcut in my head. I just took 40 times 10, which was 400. Then I know that 50 cents times 40 was 20, and I subtracted 20 from 400 and knew it was for 380, while you all were still digging your calculator out of your pocketbook. Okay. All right. So here would be the total cost. $10.40. Sounds like a tax return. Okay. All right, so we will try some of these predetermined overhead rates as we go along. Then we'll get to, of course, journal entries. But, of course, back to the chapter. Now, I don't know how many units we produced here, but if our total cost is $10.40, did that little exercise tell you how many units? All right, divide 52 units into $10.40, and how much are we per unit? How much? 27.
Basically 76.
All right. If you divide 52 into 1040, is that $7.69? You got a calculator? How much? You're telling me that that comes out to be even $20? All right, 1040 divided by 52, $20. Okay, that's what you got to know your cost is before you can give a bid now or sell it. You've got to have a markup, and if your markup's 100%, you'll sell it for $40 a unit. Or if it's 50%, you'll sell it for $30 a unit. You got to know your cost before you can put a markup on it. And these arts and crafts people don't know their cost. And they can figure in $10 an hour for labor if they want to and make an item, and if they count the materials and put in some from overhead, they may get close at what they want to sell it for. But most of them probably undersell. Under price. All right, now you can have multiple overhead rates. Now look at page 78 and 9. If you look at page 78, machine hours, if you got two departments in milling and assembling, you got a direct labor cost in milling and assembling, and you got variable overhead per machine hour in milling, and you've got variable overhead per direct labor hour in assembly. So they're using machine hours for one department and labor hours for another department. Then when you get down to the job 407, you had 4 hours in assembly. So you had direct labor hours of 5 and 20. You have direct materials of 80 and 370. And you have direct labor of 70 and 210. Now, what is your overhead in the milling department? Somebody real quick, what is your overhead in the milling department? Middle of page 78. All right. How many machine hours did you have? I see 90. Do you see 90 in the middle of the page? Now, do you see $2 per machine hour in the top example? So your answer that I wanted is 180. Okay. Now, how about the assembly department? What is your overhead? Okay. How many hours? It's based on direct labor, right? It's based on direct labor. All right. How many direct labor hours did you have? All right. And how much is it per direct labor hour? All right. And that multiplies to be what? All right. One person is with me. How about the rest of you? All right. Just read those. Do what it wants you to do. Okay. Okay. And please study page 78. Study page 78. And also look at your exhibit 5 on page 79. Step 1, calculate the estimated total manufactured overhead cost for each department. Step 2, calculate the predetermined overhead rate for each department. One is machine hours, one's direct labor hours. One's $8.50 an hour, one's $10 an hour. Step 3, calculate the amount of overhead applied for both departments. All right, and step 4, calculate the total cost. And step 5, calculate the selling price for job 407. If you don't know your markup, you don't know your selling price, but you're going to mark it up 75%. Okay? Follow those 5 steps, and you'll be okay. Always look at your summary, look at your solution problem, what have you. All right, let's go to the end of the chapter and work a few things. All right, take a minute and work exercise 2.1, page 87. Page 87, exercise 2.1. You're going to get a handle on this overhead rate before we leave today.
2.1.
2.1. All right, does anybody have an answer yet? What are you dividing by what? Okay, now what is your estimated overhead? 90 what? 94,000. What is your estimated direct labor hours?
Um, 20.
20,000. Okay, that gives you how much per hour? How much? $4.70. All right, now to read on, the company estimated 94,000 of total manufacturing overhead costs for the coming year, and variable manufacturing overhead of $2 per direct labor hour. Harris's actual manufacturing overhead cost for the year was 123,000, and its actual direct labor hours was 21,000. Now let's take that a little farther, and your answer, I would add $2 to that for variable, and your answer would be 670. Okay. All right. Now they didn't ask for this, but multiply
By 21,000.
the actual overhead cost for the year was 23. All right, multiply 21,000 hours by how much was that rate?
6.7.
All right, multiply
140, 700.
Now that was your actual overhead, 123.9. Subtract, and you'll get how much? 16.8. 16.8 is going to be over applied, and you'll end up taking that out of cost of goods sold. I'll have to show you how to do that. But 16.8 will be over applied. All right, do number 2. You at home or watching this video, please do exercise 2, page 87. All right, how many direct labor hours did you have? 10,000 what? And they already calculated the rate for you. What was the rate?
2340.
All you had to do was multiply. Now that's about as easy exercise you can find anywhere. So what's your final answer here?
252,720.
Okay, so I hope all of you zeroed in on that. But how did we get to 2340? What did they say their total overhead was estimated to be? 257.4. And how many hours were they going to use?
11.
All right, work that out and see if it comes out to 2340. It should, does it? All right, so they calculated that for you and they shouldn't have, okay? Okay, for Tuesday, I want you to work the first 10 exercises. The first 10 to get acquainted with this overhead. And of course, some of you need to read the chapter. The first 10, of course, we've already done 1 and 2. Now, the next 8 deal with the same thing to get you acquainted with calculating overhead, okay? And we'll go over those solutions, and then we'll look at some problems and so forth. But chapter 2 is important to get the predetermined overhead rate. And chapter 3 will be important to get the journal entries for manufacturing, material, labor, and overhead. Okay, so I'll see you Tuesday.